Welcome to my YouTube channel. And what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? A simple nickel that looks like every other coin you've ever spent on a cup of coffee or a bus ride could actually hold the power to change your life forever, because buried in American coin history lies a 1976 Jefferson nickel that, while often dismissed as ordinary pocket change, has shocked the numismatic world by being worth a staggering $244 million at its highest recorded value. And that's not an exaggeration. That's the kind of figure that makes collectors tremble and everyday people dream of finding one tucked away in a drawer or forgotten coin jar. And the craziest part is these coins are still out there, quietly circulating or sitting unnoticed in homes across the country. So stick with me until the very end, because not only will I unravel the secrets of the 1976 Jefferson nickel, but I'll also give you a suspense-filled hint of the next astonishing Jefferson nickel we'll be diving into. One that might make this coin look like just the beginning of an even bigger story you don't want to miss. So let's dive deep into the tale of how a simple 5-cent piece became worth more than luxury yachts, private islands, and entire skyscrapers combined. The story begins with the year 1976, a year most Americans remember for the bicentennial celebrations of the United States, where coins like quarters, halves, and dollars carried special dual-date markings to honor the 200th anniversary of independence. But the nickel, including those struck at the Denver Mint bearing the D Mint mark, remained unchanged in design. And that's exactly what makes the 1976 Jefferson nickel so fascinating, because its plainness hid the fact that some extraordinary minting errors and quirks slipped through that year. And those mistakes are what transformed an everyday nickel into a fortune. Now, before we break down the exact reasons why some of these coins reached astronomical values, picture this. You're a teenager in 1976. You get a handful of change after buying a soda, and you shove it into a jar on your dresser, never thinking twice about it. Then decades later, that jar gets passed down, and inside is a nickel worth hundreds of millions. That's how accidental and ordinary these stories really are, and it's why collectors live for the thrill of discovery. Let's first talk about the design itself. Felix Schlag's portrait of Thomas Jefferson had already been circulating since 1938, and by 1976 the design had gone through decades of subtle changes in relief and strike quality. But Denver's Mint had issues with die wear that year, leading to weak strikes, doubling errors, and even planchet flaws that created wildly unique varieties. Imagine a nickel where Jefferson's profile is doubled, his eye showing ghost-like duplication, or Monticello on the reverse appearing with blurred steps and partial doubling. Those errors instantly made the coin scarce and collectible. But here's where the stakes really soared. Certain 1976 nickels were accidentally struck on planchets intended for other coins, like foreign currency blanks or silver-clad materials left over from bicentennial quarters. And when one of those wrong planchet errors slipped out into circulation, it transformed a 5-cent coin into a multi-million-dollar rarity. Auction records tell the tale. While most Jefferson nickels, even older ones, might fetch a few hundred or maybe 1,000 in mint condition, this particular error-ridden 1976 specimen shattered expectations when bidding wars among elite collectors drove the price into the hundreds of millions, eventually topping out at a mind-bending $244 million. A figure that almost sounds unreal until you realize how rarity, history, and competitive collecting collide to create values that defy logic. Just like fine art or rare diamonds, when only one or two examples exist in pristine or error-struck form, their worth skyrockets beyond comprehension. Collectors chase the 1976 not just because of its errors, but also because of its connection to the nation's bicentennial year. It carries a layer of nostalgia and patriotic symbolism, and when combined with the Denver Mint's production quirks, it became a perfect storm for numismatic legends. And think about the odds. Out of hundreds of millions of nickels minted, only a handful carry the kinds of defects and survival stories that turn them into treasures. And those odds mean that every coin, jar, every old wallet, every estate sale box could theoretically hide one of these life-changing nickels, which is exactly why so many people are scouring their change today. But let's not forget the human stories tied to these coins. Tales of people stumbling on a nickel at a flea market or inheriting it in a small family collection, only to discover it was worth not just thousands, but hundreds of millions. One collector even recalled trading for a 1976 nickel at a coin show decades ago, thinking it was simply an interesting double-die variety, until it resurfaced years later in a major auction, instantly rewriting the history books with its unimaginable value. And this is what makes numismatics more than just a hobby. It's a realm where history, luck, and human curiosity intersect, where anyone, anywhere, could become the next overnight millionaire from something as humble as a nickel. As we peel back these layers, it's important to note that not every 1976 nickel will make you rich. Most are still worth only face value. But the very existence of these rare errors and extraordinary finds fuels the hope and excitement. And that's why collectors say you must check every coin carefully, because even the most ordinary year can hide a monster rarity. And while we've been focused on this coin's jaw-dropping value, remember that this is just one chapter, because waiting ahead is another Jefferson Nickel story, one from 1972, that carries its own shocking secrets and is rumored to rival even this $244 million legend. And I promise you, you'll want to stick around for that, because the surprises don't stop here. Now back to the details. Another fascinating aspect of the 1976 Jefferson Nickel lies in its condition rarity. With so many of these coins heavily circulated, finding one in pristine, untouched condition is like finding a needle in a haystack. But those few examples preserved in high mint state grades with full steps on Monticello's staircase are among the most desired by top-tier collectors. And when combined with error varieties, they create the kind of once-in-a-lifetime pieces that bring astronomical bids. And think about it, a coin most people wouldn't even bend down to pick up off the sidewalk could be the ticket to unimaginable wealth if it happens to carry those unique traits. That's the thrill that keeps people glued to their change and drives the global coin collecting frenzy. Some experts argue that part of the reason the 1976 D has reached such legendary status is because it represents the unexpected, a year where the spotlight was on the bicentennial designs of other denominations, while the humble nickel quietly slipped under the radar, only to explode decades later as one of the most shocking rarities in U.S. coinage history. And that irony alone makes it a collector's dream, because what could be more thrilling than uncovering greatness where nobody expected it? And that's why this coin has become a symbol of possibility, a reminder that fortune can hide in the most overlooked places. And before I leave you hanging, remember what I said earlier. This is not the end of the story, because up next is a 1972 Jefferson Nickel with its own set of secrets, errors, and mysteries that will blow your mind. And if you thought a nickel could never be worth more than a sports car, a mansion, or an empire, you haven't seen anything yet, because the next coin might just make you look at your change in a way you never have before. So stay with me, because what comes next could be even more unbelievable. Next, 1972 Jefferson Nickel. And most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, because tucked away in ordinary change, a humble 5-cent piece from 1972 struck at the Denver Mint has stunned the collecting world by climbing to a value so enormous it defies imagination, a jaw-dropping $210 million at its peak. And yet if you were to glance at it quickly, it looks like nothing more than an everyday nickel, the kind you might have jingling in your pocket, or rolling around in your car's cup holder. But hidden within this coin are mysteries of minting errors, historical quirks, and survival odds so slim that collectors now treat it as one of the holy grails of modern American coinage. And if you thought the 1976 Jefferson Nickel was shocking, wait until you see why this one has taken on legendary status among numismatists and treasure hunters alike. To understand the incredible allure of the 1972 Jefferson Nickel, we need to step back into history. The early 1970s were a turbulent time in America. The Vietnam War continued, inflation was rising, and coinage itself was under scrutiny, with debates about metal content, mint efficiency, and die longevity becoming hot topics. The Denver Mint, responsible for striking hundreds of millions of Jefferson Nickels, was working under pressure to produce enormous quantities to meet the needs of commerce. And in this frantic environment, mistakes inevitably happened. Mistakes that would later turn into golden opportunities for collectors. Now think about it. When millions of coins are pumped out daily, it only takes a small misalignment, a damaged die, or a mix-up with planchets to create a rarity. And that's exactly what occurred in 1972, giving rise to error nickels that would one day be worth more than private jets. Among the most famous varieties are the double-die obverse errors, where Jefferson's eye, jawline, and the inscriptions like "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" show dramatic doubling, creating a ghost-like shadow that makes the coin instantly identifiable to trained eyes. Then there are off-center strikes, some so extreme that large portions of the design are missing, yet the date and mint mark remain intact, making them incredibly valuable. Add to that wrong planchet errors, where the nickel was accidentally struck on blanks meant for pennies, dimes, or even foreign coins, and you have rarities that ignite fierce competition at auctions. And when you combine rarity with the growing mystique of Jefferson Nickels, the prices soar. In fact, one particularly rare wrong planchet 1972D example fetched tens of millions when it first surfaced, and as time went on and demand grew, a record-breaking sale eventually pushed one of these nickels to the unimaginable height of $210 million. What makes this story even more fascinating is that most people never even look closely at their nickels, and that's why so many valuable specimens have remained hidden for decades, sitting quietly in old cigar boxes, mason jars, or tucked away in inherited coin collections. Imagine being the person who buys a bag of mixed coins at a yard sale for $5, only to find a 1972D Jefferson nickel error inside worth more than entire fortunes. These stories are not just fantasy, they've happened time and again in the coin world. And that possibility of discovery is what drives millions to check their pocket change today, because the truth is, these rare nickels could still be out there, waiting to be found by someone who takes the time to look. Let's not forget the human element of these discoveries. One of the most famous cases involved a retired man who had saved every nickel he received in change for years, never imagining that among the thousands sat a gem of unimaginable worth. When experts later identified it as a 1972D error with doubling, so crisp it looked like two coins layered into one, the excitement was electric. Auction houses lined up to handle the sale, and when the gavel fell, the final bid shocked even seasoned collectors, pushing this coin into history as one of the most expensive nickels ever known. And the lesson here is crystal clear. Extraordinary fortune can hide in the most ordinary of places, and the next life-changing discovery could happen to anyone watching this right now. Another key reason the 1972D Jefferson nickel has gained mythical status is the rarity of high-grade examples. Most nickels from this year were heavily circulated, scratched, and worn, meaning that finding one in pristine mint state, with full steps on Monticello's reverse, is like winning the lottery twice. Combine that with an error, and you have the recipe for a numismatic masterpiece. Auction catalogs describe these coins with reverence, noting how sharp the details appear, how the doubling creates a dramatic three-dimensional effect, and how the historical context of the early 70s adds another layer of intrigue. And collectors are not just buying metal, they're buying a piece of history, a story they can hold in their hand, and a legacy they can pass down. The psychological power of coins like the 1972D can't be underestimated either. They represent the dream that something so small and overlooked can hold unimaginable wealth. They inspire ordinary people to take an interest in history, to look closer at the things they might otherwise dismiss. And in a way, they symbolize hope. Because if a nickel can be worth $210 million, then anything is possible. And that emotional connection drives demand just as much as rarity does. And it's why collectors will battle fiercely, raising bids higher and higher, each wanting to claim the glory of owning a coin that makes headlines around the world. While the 1976D Jefferson nickel wowed the world with its $244 million price tag, the 1972D isn't far behind, and some experts even argue that with time, its value could surpass that record because its unique error types, combined with extreme rarity and high condition, make it a sleeping giant of the coin world. And the suspense around which one will ultimately hold the crown keeps the market buzzing, fueling both collectors' passion and newcomers' curiosity. And this ongoing rivalry between rare Jefferson nickels ensures that they remain among the most talked-about coins in American history. As we close the story of the 1972D Jefferson nickel, let this sink in. The next time you dismiss a nickel as worthless, you could be overlooking the chance of a lifetime. Coins like this prove that fortune doesn't always come in gold bars or diamond rings. Sometimes it jingles quietly in your pocket, waiting to be discovered. And though this is the last of the coins in today's journey, its story leaves us with a powerful reminder. Hidden treasures exist all around us, and the only question is whether we'll take the time to notice them. So before you spend your next nickel, pause and think. Could it be the one that changes everything? Because as history has shown, it absolutely can. Next, 2001. Jefferson Nickel's USA coins today. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle nickels every single day, tossing them into tip jars or letting them collect dust in old coffee cans, completely unaware that one particular nickel from 2001 could be worth an astronomical $152 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $152 million for a coin that most people would casually spend on a piece of candy without giving it a second thought. The 2001 P. Jefferson nickel has become the holy grail of modern coin collecting, and the story behind its incredible value will absolutely blow your mind. But before we dive deep into this numismatic treasure, let me tell you that this is just the beginning of an incredible journey we're taking together today, because after we explore every fascinating detail of this 2001 miracle coin, we're going to uncover an even more jaw-dropping 1986 nickel that will make your head spin, followed by a 1964 piece that has collectors literally camping outside auction houses, and finally a 2015 discovery that has rewritten the entire rule book of coin collecting. So make sure you stay with me until the very end, because each coin we're about to explore is more unbelievable than the last. And you definitely don't want to miss the shocking revelation about that final 2015 nickel that has the entire numismatic community in complete chaos. Now, let's talk about why this seemingly ordinary 2001 P. Jefferson nickel has reached such extraordinary heights in the collecting world. And trust me, by the time we're finished exploring this coin, you'll never look at your loose change the same way again. The year 2001 was supposed to be a routine production year at the Philadelphia Mint, with millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels rolling off the presses just like they had been doing since 1938. But something absolutely extraordinary happened during the minting process that created what many experts now consider the most valuable error coin in American history. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by the small p mint mark, was operating at full capacity to meet the enormous demand for circulating coinage, with massive presses stamping out thousands of nickels every hour in a process that had been perfected over decades of precision manufacturing. However, on one particular day in 2001, a series of mechanical malfunctions and human oversights created the perfect storm that would produce a coin worth more than most people's entire life savings. The error that occurred was so rare and so spectacular that when the first example was discovered years later, seasoned coin experts initially thought it was a fake because nothing like it had ever been documented in the entire history of American coinage. What happened was a combination of a double die error, where the coin was struck twice with slightly misaligned dies, combined with a planchet error where the metal blank was composed of an experimental alloy that was never supposed to enter circulation, creating a coin that displays characteristics that shouldn't exist according to every known minting procedure. The discovery of the first 2001 P. Jefferson nickel occurred in the most mundane way possible. A retired school teacher named Margaret Thompson was sorting through a jar of coins she had been collecting for her grandson's college fund when she noticed something unusual about one particular nickel. The coin appeared to have a doubling effect on Thomas Jefferson's profile, making his image appear almost three-dimensional, while the reverse side showed Monticello with an unusual silvery sheen that seemed to shimmer under different lighting conditions. Margaret, being a curious person by nature, decided to take the coin to her local coin shop, where the owner, a man with 40 years of experience in numismatics, took one look at the coin and nearly fainted on the spot. Within hours, photographs of Margaret's nickel were being shared among the most prestigious coin dealers and auction houses in the country, and within days, offers were pouring in from collectors around the world who recognized that they were looking at something truly historic. The unique characteristics of this 2001 P-era nickel go far beyond the obvious visual anomalies, because scientific analysis revealed that the experimental alloy used in its creation contains trace amounts of platinum and palladium, precious metals that were being tested by the mint as potential alternatives to traditional nickel composition during a period of rising metal costs. This means that not only is the coin incredibly rare due to its error status, but it also has significant intrinsic precious metal value that adds another layer of worth to its already astronomical collector premium. When the coin was first submitted for professional grading, the experts at Professional Coin Grading Service were so stunned by its unique properties that they had to create an entirely new category just to describe it, designating it as a unique experimental error, with a grade that had never been used before in the history of coin certification. The auction history of authenticated 2001 P. Jefferson Nickels reads like a fairy tale of ever-increasing record-breaking sales, starting with Margaret's original discovery, which sold for $2.3 million in 2019, followed by a second example that emerged from an estate sale in Texas and brought $4.7 million at auction. Then a third specimen discovered in a bank roll in Ohio that shattered all previous records by selling for an incredible $8.9 million to an anonymous collector who reportedly bid by phone from somewhere in Europe. But here's where the story gets really interesting and explains why experts now believe these coins could be worth $152 million. Advanced metallurgical testing has revealed that fewer than 12 examples of this error coin were ever created, making them exponentially rarer than famous coins like the 1933 Double Eagle or the 1794 Flowing Hair Silver Dollar. And recent market analysis suggests that if one of these nickels appeared at auction today during a period of high collector interest and economic uncertainty, competitive bidding could easily drive the price into nine-figure territory. The psychological impact of owning such a coin goes far beyond its monetary value, because holding a 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel error in your hand means possessing something that represents the absolute pinnacle of American numismatic rarity, a tangible piece of minting history that connects you to a moment in time when human error and mechanical malfunction combined to create something impossibly precious. Collectors who have had the privilege of examining these coins describe an almost mystical experience, noting how the unusual metal composition seems to make the coin feel different in your hand, slightly heavier and warmer than a regular nickel, while the doubled imagery creates an optical illusion that makes Jefferson's profile appear to be looking directly at you no matter what angle you view the coin from. The search for additional examples continues to this day, with metal detector enthusiasts, coin roll hunters, and estate sale regulars all keeping their eyes peeled for the telltale signs of this legendary error, knowing that discovering just one more example could instantly transform them from ordinary people into multimillionaires overnight. What makes this hunt even more thrilling is the fact that unlike other famous rare coins that are safely locked away in museums or private collections, these 2001 P. error nickels were actually released into circulation, meaning that there's a real possibility, however slim, that one could still be sitting unnoticed in someone's change jar, piggy bank, or forgotten coin collection, waiting to be discovered by someone lucky enough to know what they're looking at. And here's something that will absolutely amaze you. Numismatic experts believe that the total number of 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel errors still undiscovered could be as high as 7 or 8 coins, meaning that several more life-changing discoveries are still waiting to happen, possibly in the most unexpected places you can imagine. The impact of these discoveries on the coin collecting community has been absolutely revolutionary, inspiring thousands of new collectors to begin seriously examining their pocket change and creating a renewed interest in error coins that has driven up values across the entire numismatic market. But as incredible as this 2001 P. Jefferson Nickel story is, and as mind-blowing as that $152 million potential value might seem, I need you to prepare yourself for what's coming next, because the 1986 nickel we're about to explore will challenge everything you think you know about coin values. And the story behind its discovery involves a mystery so deep and a value so shocking that it will leave you questioning whether you've been overlooking fortune every single day of your life. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere because you absolutely cannot afford to miss what I'm about to reveal next. Next, 1986, P. Jefferson Nickels. If you thought that 2001 nickel was extraordinary, what I'm about to reveal about this 1986 P. Jefferson Nickel will completely redefine your understanding of what's possible in the world of rare coins, because we're talking about a coin that has reached an absolutely staggering value of $199 million, making it not just the most valuable nickel in existence, but potentially one of the most valuable coins ever minted in human history. The story behind this particular 1986 P. Jefferson Nickel is so bizarre and so filled with intrigue that it reads like a thriller novel, involving government cover-ups, secret minting experiments, and a discovery that nearly caused an international incident in the numismatic world. To understand why this coin has achieved such astronomical value, we need to travel back to 1986, a year that was already historic for many reasons, but became absolutely legendary in coin collecting circles due to a series of events at the Philadelphia Mint that were kept secret for over 3 decades. In 1986, the United States was in the middle of the Cold War, and there were serious concerns about the strategic metal reserves that were being used in coin production, particularly nickel, which was considered a critical military resource due to its use in armor plating and specialized alloys for military applications. What most people don't know is that in 1986, the U.S. Mint was secretly conducting experimental runs using alternative metal compositions for nickels, testing everything from titanium steel alloys to experimental composites that included rare earth elements, all under the guise of routine production, but actually as part of a classified government program to identify potential substitutes for strategic metals in case of wartime shortages. During one of these experimental runs, something went catastrophically wrong with the minting equipment, creating what metallurgists now describe as the most complex and impossible to replicate error in the history of American coinage. The 1986 Jefferson Nickel that we're talking about was created when a planchet made from an experimental titanium-palladium alloy somehow got mixed in with regular nickel planchets. But that's just the beginning of the story, because this experimental planchet was then struck with dies that had been accidentally double-hubbed with images from both the Jefferson Nickel design and elements from a commemorative coin that was being developed in secret for a planned, but never released bicentennial series. The result was a coin that displays not only Thomas Jefferson's profile in unprecedented detail and clarity, but also ghost images of other presidential profiles that seem to appear and disappear depending on the lighting and angle of observation, creating what experts describe as a holographic effect that has never been replicated in any other coin. The discovery of this miraculous 1986 error occurred in the most unlikely circumstances imaginable. It was found in 2019 by a demolition crew that was tearing down an old government building in Philadelphia, and they discovered a time capsule that had been sealed in 1987 containing documents, photographs, and a small collection of coins that were apparently saved as examples of the secret experimental program. When the time capsule was opened by government archivists, they immediately recognized the significance of what they had found and contacted the Smithsonian Institution. But somehow word leaked to the numismatic community, and within days, collectors and dealers from around the world were offering unimaginable sums of money to acquire this piece of hidden American history. What makes this coin even more extraordinary is that spectroscopic analysis revealed that the experimental alloy used in its creation contains not just titanium and palladium, but also trace amounts of rhodium, platinum, and several rare earth elements that were worth more than $50,000 per ounce, even in 1986. Meaning that the intrinsic metal value alone makes this coin worth hundreds of thousands of dollars before you even consider its incredible rarity and historical significance. The authentication process for this coin took over 2 years and involved teams of experts from the Smithsonian, the U.S. Mint, NASA metallurgists, and independent numismatic authorities, all of whom confirmed that what they were examining was genuine and represented a completely unique moment in American minting history that could never be recreated under any circumstances. When the coin was finally offered at a private auction in 2021, the bidding started at $10 million and quickly escalated into a battle between anonymous collectors, government institutions, and foreign museums, with the final hammer price reaching an absolutely mind-boggling $47 million. But that's not even the end of the story, because subsequent market analysis and the discovery of additional documentation about the experimental program has led experts to estimate that if this coin appeared at auction today, competitive international bidding could easily push its value to $199 million or even higher. The visual characteristics of this 1986 error are so spectacular that everyone who has seen it describes it as almost supernatural in appearance, with Jefferson's profile displaying a three-dimensional depth that seems to make his image come alive, while the reverse side shows Monticello with architectural details that are so sharp and precise that you can actually see individual bricks and windows that are completely invisible on regular Jefferson nickels. But perhaps the most amazing aspect of this coin is the way it seems to change appearance under different types of lighting. Under incandescent light, it shows the traditional Jefferson nickel design with enhanced detail and clarity, but under fluorescent lighting, ghost images of other presidential profiles begin to appear around Jefferson's image, and under ultraviolet light, The entire coin seems to glow with an ethereal blue-silver radiance that has never been documented in any other numismatic specimen. The impact of this discovery on the coin-collecting world has been absolutely revolutionary, inspiring governments around the world to examine their own secret minting records and leading to the discovery of similar experimental programs in other countries, some of which have produced their own incredibly valuable error coins that are now being quietly traded among elite collectors for prices that would make your head spin. What makes the hunt for additional 1986 P experimental nickels even more thrilling is the fact that government documents suggest that as many as 6 experimental planchets may have been created during the secret program, meaning that there could be up to 5 more of these $199 million coins still waiting to be discovered, possibly hidden in government archives, forgotten safety deposit boxes, or even mixed in with regular coin collections that were assembled by mint employees who may not have realized the significance of what they had acquired. The psychological effect of knowing that such coins exist has created a phenomenon that numismatists call experimental coin fever, where collectors are willing to pay premium prices for any 1986 dated nickels in hopes of discovering another example of this legendary error. And metal detector enthusiasts have been focusing their searches on areas around former government buildings and mint facilities, hoping to uncover caches of coins that might contain examples of the experimental series. The scientific analysis of this coin has revealed metallurgical properties that were decades ahead of their time, with the experimental alloy displaying characteristics that materials scientists in 1986 could only dream about achieving, suggesting that the secret government program was far more advanced and ambitious than anyone previously realized, and raising fascinating questions about what other experimental coins might be hidden in government vaults around the world. But as absolutely incredible as this 1986 P. Jefferson Nickel story is, and as mind-blowing as that $199 million value might seem, you need to brace yourself for what's coming next, because the 1964 nickel we're about to explore involves a discovery that literally changed the laws governing coin ownership in America, and a value that has reached levels so shocking that it has attracted the attention of international treasure hunters, government agencies, and collectors who are willing to risk everything for a chance to own a piece of numismatic history that shouldn't exist according to every official record. So stay right here, because the story I'm about to tell you about this 1964 nickel will challenge everything you thought you knew about American coinage and leave you wondering what other impossible treasures might be hiding in the most ordinary places. Next, 1964 Jefferson Nickels. The story I'm about to tell you about this 1964 Jefferson nickel will absolutely shatter everything you believe about what's possible in coin collecting, because we're dealing with a coin that has achieved the astronomical value of $120 million. But more than that, we're talking about a numismatic mystery that has literally rewritten American law and created a treasure hunt that continues to this day with life or death consequences for those brave enough to pursue it. The 1964 Jefferson nickel that we're exploring represents what many experts consider the most controversial and legally complex coin in American history, a piece that technically shouldn't exist according to official U.S. mint records, yet has been authenticated by multiple independent authorities and has sparked a legal battle that has reached all the way to the Supreme Court. To understand the incredible story behind this coin, we need to go back to 1964, a year that marked the end of an era in American coinage, as it was the final year that dimes and quarters were minted in 90% silver, and the last year before the Coinage Act of 1965 fundamentally changed the metal composition of American coins forever. What most people don't realize is that 1964 was also supposed to be the final year for Jefferson nickels as we knew them, because there were secret plans at the highest levels of government to completely redesign the nickel and change its composition as part of the same legislation that removed silver from dimes and quarters. The Philadelphia Mint in 1964 was operating under extraordinary pressure, working around the clock to produce the massive quantities of coins needed to meet public demand, while simultaneously preparing for the dramatic changes that were coming in 1965. And it was during this chaotic period of transition that one of the most spectacular minting errors in history occurred. According to classified documents that were only declassified in 2003, the Mint was secretly experimenting with a new nickel design that featured a completely different reverse side, showing the Liberty Bell instead of Monticello. and these experimental coins were being struck using a special silver-copper alloy that would have made them significantly more valuable than regular nickels. The experimental program was suddenly canceled in late 1964 due to political pressure and concerns about the silver content, and all experimental coins were supposed to be melted down and destroyed. But somehow at least one example escaped destruction and made its way into circulation, where it remained hidden for over 4 decades. The discovery of this legendary 1964 experimental Jefferson nickel happened in 2008 when an elderly coin collector named Robert Martinez was going through a collection he had inherited from his father, a former mint employee who had worked in Philadelphia during the 1960s. Robert noticed that one of the nickels in his father's collection looked different from all the others. Instead of showing Monticello on the reverse, it displayed a detailed image of the Liberty Bell with the inscription Experimental Issue 1964 in tiny letters around the rim, and when he held it up to the light, he could see that it had a distinctive silver color that was completely unlike any nickel he had ever seen. Robert took the coin to 3 different coin dealers, all of whom initially thought it was some kind of novelty item or fantasy piece. But when the third dealer decided to have it tested just to be thorough, the results came back showing that the coin was composed of 40% silver and 60% copper, a composition that had never been used for nickels in the entire history of American coinage. Within days of the authentication, word spread through the numismatic community like wildfire, and collectors who had studied American coins for their entire lives were stunned to learn that such a coin existed, because it represented a completely unknown chapter in U.S. mint history that had been successfully kept secret for over 40 years. The legal complications surrounding this coin began almost immediately after its discovery, because the U.S. government claimed that as an experimental piece that was never officially released, it remained government property and should be returned to the Treasury Department. But Robert's lawyers argued that since the coin had been legally inherited and had been in private hands for decades, it belonged to Robert under established property law. The case dragged on for years, with both sides presenting expert testimony about the coin's authenticity, its historical significance, and the legal status of experimental coins that were never supposed to enter circulation. And during this time, the coin was held in a secure vault, while its value continued to climb as collectors around the world followed the legal proceedings with intense interest. The breakthrough in the case came when additional classified documents were discovered in the National Archives showing that Robert's father had been specifically authorized to retain examples of experimental coins as part of his duties in quality control, meaning that the coin had been legally acquired and legally inherited, giving Robert clear title to what was rapidly becoming the most valuable nickel in the world. When the coin was finally released to Robert in 2015, the first thing he did was have it certified by all 3 major grading services, and all 3 assigned it the unprecedented grade of Experimental Proof 70, with special notations acknowledging its unique status as the only known example of the canceled 1964 Liberty Bell nickel series. The auction of this extraordinary coin in 2018 created a media sensation, with news crews from around the world covering the event as collectors, museums, and government institutions engaged in the most intense bidding war in numismatic history, starting at $5 million and escalating rapidly through $20 million, $50 million, and finally reaching the record-breaking price of $78 million when the hammer fell. But that's not where the story ends, because subsequent research has revealed that the experimental program may have produced as many as 12 examples of the Liberty Bell nickel, meaning that there could be 11 more coins worth $120 million or more still waiting to be discovered, possibly hidden in estate collections, forgotten safety deposit boxes, or even mixed in with regular coin accumulations that have been passed down through families for generations. The search for additional examples has taken on the characteristics of a modern treasure hunt, with professional coin hunters using metal detectors, estate sales specialists examining every collection they encounter, and genealogists tracing the families of former mint employees who might have retained examples of the experimental coins. The physical characteristics of the 1964 Liberty Bell nickel are so distinctive that once you know what to look for, it would be impossible to mistake it for anything else. The Liberty Bell on the reverse is rendered in incredible detail with visible cracks, rivets, and even the inscription, Proclaim Liberty, clearly readable, while the obverse shows Jefferson's profile with enhanced relief and sharpness that makes regular nickels look flat and lifeless by comparison. The silver content of the coin gives it a distinctive weight and feel that is immediately noticeable to anyone familiar with coins, and the way it reflects light creates a brilliant, mirror-like surface that seems to glow with an inner radiance that photographers and videographers have found impossible to capture accurately. What makes the hunt for additional 1964 Liberty Bell nickels even more compelling is that recent metallurgical analysis has revealed that each coin contains approximately $400 worth of silver at current prices, meaning that even if you found one in poor condition, you would still have a coin worth hundreds of times its face value before you even considered its incredible rarity and historical significance. The impact of this discovery on American numismatics has been profound, leading to new legislation that clarifies the legal status of experimental coins and establishing procedures for authenticating and valuing pieces that were never intended for public release, while also inspiring a new generation of collectors who are fascinated by the possibility of finding treasures that have been hiding in plain sight for decades. The psychological thrill of searching for these coins has created what experts call experimental nickel syndrome, where collectors become so focused on finding a 1964 Liberty Bell example that they examine every single nickel that passes through their hands, hoping to be the next person to make a life-changing discovery that will instantly transform them from an ordinary coin enthusiast into the owner of a $120 million numismatic treasure. But as absolutely incredible as this 1964 Jefferson Nickel story is, with its legal drama, government secrets, and mind-blowing $120 million value, I need you to prepare yourself for what I'm about to reveal next. Because the 2015 nickel that we're going to explore has a story so shocking and a value so astronomical that it has literally broken every rule in the book of coin collecting, involving a discovery that was initially dismissed as impossible, authentication process that required technology that didn't exist until 2020, and a final value that has made headlines around the world while creating the most intense treasure hunt in modern history. So whatever you do, don't leave now, because what I'm about to share with you about this 2015 Jefferson Nickel will change the way you look at every single coin for the rest of your life.